Hello everyone and welcome back to Critical Moves. Today I'm joined by two people who play video games, and I'm your host Jack. But who's actually joining me today is none other than the wonderful Adam, my friend from Poland.
Hello Jack, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? I just identified you as someone who plays video games and is from Poland.
There's like 5 of us in here. Basically, we live in huts and like throw rocks in here. But I imported PC from UK, so maybe that's why. Harsh life in Poland. I go hunting after the podcast.
Okay, so you can eat the next day. All right. And then we have someone who is actually sitting on a giant pile of gold and is going to tell us all about our topic for today's episode. Today we're also joined by Nuno.
Hello everyone, how are you guys? Doing great lately?
Yeah, I'm doing well, Adam. Adam's doing well. He's going to go hunting after this. So.
Sorry, I focused on tracing animals.
It plays real life wargaming with hunting. Are we doing an episode on strategy game or hunting sims today?
Oh man, great idea for an episode.
I'm pretty sure there has to be some sort of weird internet niche about hunting sims, because from time to time like a couple of hunting sims pop up on my Steam recommendation list, which is weird because I was never that much into hunting, but there's one that has like overwhelmingly positive reviews with 100,000 reviews, something like that. I guess that's something. But yeah, we're here to talk about war games today. So what you guys want to know about war games, do let me know. Strategy sims, war games, what else?
Nuno, I'm curious, why... So they're called war games because they have war in them, and a lot of times they cover previous historical events. Why are they also considered strategy simulation games? Why aren't they just strategy games they cover war?
I think the term war game comes from the fact that these games go back to the Kriegspiel. I guess you can say the first simulation that arose in the 18th century, I think. So it was considered wargaming right now. So this actually comes before video games were even a thing. A couple of 2 centuries before war games were a thing. So technically, you have war games and then you have strategy games coming after. But I think the reason they're called war games is just because of tradition, and then the military has been using war games for at least 2 centuries now to try and simulate how conflicts might play out. And you have a lot of famous examples in World War II where war games actually provided a lot of valuable information, especially in the Atlantic front. Like, so to try and war game where U-boats were and all that, so you could try out a lot of different tactics and see, are the guys here, are the guys there, and try to create routes around that. So wargaming actually has a very tangible importance to it, because it serves a lot of militaries and still does. So that's the basics of the origins of wargaming. And then I think the term just stuck. Then the wargaming became tabletops, and then as the digital market rose in its prominence in the late 80s and early 90s and 2000s, they just made a natural transition to digital, and then all things got blurred when you started to have RTS, turn-based strategy, and all that coming and making a show. So I do like the term war games, not because they're necessarily war related, even if they are, but they're more associated with historical titles. But I guess you can say that every game that simulates warfare can be considered wargaming as a whole. Not necessarily historical. You have a couple of different examples, like Shadow Empire, which is a very complex game, and everything is pretty much no, everything is fictional on it. It's on the near future. I don't know if you guys know the game Shadow Empire, so just give it a look. It's a mixture between traditional wargaming and something like 4X and Civilization, but with a lot more complexity, politics, logistics, equipment, troops, realistic combat, if you can call it that, because of logistics and combat resolution.
Shadow Empire is one of these games that I bought on Steam. Or maybe I didn't bought. It's on wishlist. Anyway, I don't remember. I thought I bought it, but the longer I think, I didn't buy it. Anyway, and I had a look at the gameplays of the game on YouTube, and to be honest, I wish I would play this game, but anytime I'm like, okay, I go for it. The minute at that exact moment, I lose interest because it's too damn hard to take everything into consideration. And taking into account what you just said, for example, I'm an example of the person that plays strategy games, and I really try to play war sims and strategy simulations. And I remember playing when I was younger the game called Panzer General or something like that. And again, when I was really young, for me it was extremely hard to understand the whole point of this game, because there's not fancy graphics, the units are not moving in fancy way, it's just a plain simple strategy. And when I think about strategy sims, that's exactly it. Like most of the times they are not overly complex in terms of graphics, but they are extremely complex in terms of gameplay. Am I right?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that tends to separate war games from RTS games and even turn-based strategy, which is war games are a lot more focused on mechanics, and even to their detriment, sometimes the mechanics can be a bit overwhelming, obtuse as well. Like you really don't know what you're doing, you don't know what consequences you're gonna have. So I do think that wargaming is the kind of genre that you need a kind of stepping ladder to get there. Like if you're a traditional RTS player like I was, like for example, I actually had to go over those barriers to enter wargaming. The reason that I kept trying to get into wargaming just because I really liked the idea, and I know that I was gonna be having fun the moment I realized that what I was doing, because I'm super interested in realistic outcomes of combat. I really love history. I read a lot about history. I do like to create my own scenarios as well. I like to try out different tactics and strategies. So I knew that I was going to enjoy that, but I had to find the right balance between, okay, so where do I even start here? And I don't think that Shadow Empire is a game that you can start playing, because it's just way too complex to begin with. So I would go with something that's a lot more similar to the games you already played. And before recording, you were talking about Gettysburg, Ultimate General Gettysburg. So I think that game came out like 2014, 2015, something like that. And it was developed by Dartmouth, the guy that developed the Dartmouth for Empire Total War. So that's I think that's a great stepping stone to enter wargaming. So because it's simple enough that it's very close to whatever else you're doing in Total War, because it's a large battle, it's limited to, you don't have the kind of strategic elements as that, you're just fighting in a battle. But it tries to have a lot of realistic element that Total War doesn't necessarily have. Like the morale is a lot more complex, the ammunition is a lot more complex, the tactics are a lot more complex, the AI is a lot way more competent than Total War AI could ever be. So and the outcome of the battle is also, or the engagement you have, small engagement you have, is also extremely plausible as well. I don't like to say realistic, they're more plausible, because if they were realistic, they would always be the same, and they would be deterministic as well. So I think that games like Ultimate General Gettysburg are a great stepping stone if you're trying to enter wargaming. It's super simple. You probably can pick up and start playing it, but even then there are a couple of mechanics that are not. So for example, cover isn't very well explained in the game as well. Like lines of sights for artillery are not all that well explained too.
You see, exactly what I mean is that because I played the Gettysburg also, as you mentioned, and for me this is the thing. In all these games, that I tried, and I tried Panzer General, Gettysburg, but I also tried others. I don't even remember what the name of there was, because I get a couple of them in humble bundles, maybe some sales. You know how it is. Games happen to be on your account at some point, and I tried to play them. And the one thing that struck me is that, like, I believe when you are a developer of the strategy simulator, you like you feel this urge not to give any information to the player. Like when you decide and you talk with your teammates, like, oh, maybe let's make a tutorial. There's always this one guy. No. There's no tutorial in a war simulation. There isn't a single tutorial. You cannot have any information. Everyone has to figure it out yourself. Like, yeah, man, but we should make a tutorial. No, and that's how it is, I believe.
No, I think you have to like, you cannot. It's very hard to find the middle ground there, because you either have like no information at all and you have to figure it out, or you have tutorials that are way too detailed and complicated to the point that it looks like you're having a university course all over again. Just now you're learning how to. So let's say Command Modern Operations is a naval war game developed by Matrix Simulations and Slytherin as well. So I think Slytherin is the parent company, I think. But the Command Modern Operations is used by NATO and the United States Army and all that to do a lot of simulations. So if you try to undergo their tutorials, it looks like you're going to a military academy, which is like you're learning how can I set up this very weird missile that I have no idea how it works, because there are, like, you have a spreadsheet of numbers that it never comes to an end. So you're never able to ingrain anything into you. So the moment you stop engaging with the tutorial, you forget everything you just learned. So it takes a long while to get used to it. Also, the user interface is not the best as well, because it's way too complex. And then you have the opposite, which is no information is given. Go ahead, try and figure yourself out. Here are a couple of tutorials with 3 or 4 directions. So yeah, have fun, try it out.
Usually it's like a tutorial plays out like that. Okay, press right button to move your unit, click here to open the menu. Okay, go on, you can play. And then you're like left with like thousands of things happening and like no clue what's any of this. So
yeah, and you also have like a third school of thought, I think, which is the old school manual, PDF, 500 pages manual from games like War in the East. Yeah, like even War in the East 2 had a physical manual that was like very thick book. I don't know how many pages it had, but probably I'm pretty sure you can. You have the PDF available somewhere. I think it's free to download on Steam. It's like something like 500 pages, something like that. I mean, if you're only playing that game for a year, yeah, maybe it justifies you going over each mechanic and read the 500-page manual. But if you like to skip between games, you play this game and you play that game as well, I think wargaming, you really need a kind of stepping stone, and you need the kind of mentality that's like, do I really want to play this? Like, do I really enjoy this, or do I like the idea of what this might give me? And I come across a lot of people discussing war games online, and they all have the same issue, which is, man, I cannot get any enjoyment out of this. And I think that it all comes down to the fact that people like the idea of war games, but they don't really enjoy playing war games. Like, they think they like that. Oh man, when I get this game, I'm really gonna have fun. I'm gonna be enjoying this a lot. I'm gonna be a very realistic and super into captain or general or something like that. I'm gonna be the best general there ever was. And then the moment they start to play with those mechanics, they're like, man, do I really have to manage logistics here? Like, was this a part of war? Like, did war actually have? Isn't this like Company of Heroes, where I can just like move my men around and I don't have to worry about if they just have 10 bullets in their mags? Like, is this actually a real thing? So yeah, I think that the moment you start to see the real complexity that some of these games try to simulate, things start to get very very obtuse for a lot of people. But also something that I realized while I was playing war games is that if you play most of war games under the pretense that you're not really playing a video game, that you are actually doing this in real life, like it becomes a lot more intuitive, because like you know that in real life you need to account for the amount of ammo your units have. You know that they cannot fight for 10 hours straight. Like that might make sense in Age of Empires, where the guys don't get tired, but war games simulate this kind of stuff. So the moment you start to use, I guess you say, common sense, everything becomes a lot easier, which is kind of contradictory to the complexity of mechanics that the game tries to portray. So it's a very different balancing act. But I think that if you go and play war games, say, let me pick up something like, okay, so maybe War Game Design Studios Eagle Strike, something like that. Very realistic war game set in World War II, about the actions of the 101st and the 82nd Airborne Divisions. I think they also have a lot of other scenarios as well. Like the moment you realize that, okay, instead of trying to command this like they were pixel truppen in Company of Heroes, and I start to look at them like they were actual soldiers, things make a lot more sense, because you cannot just tell them to, go forward and let's see how this ends, because that's not how people actually play or how people actually fight in war, because you're not going to be ordering a front assault against a machine gun most of the times, and probably the guys would say, man, this officer is crazy, I'm going to shoot him in the back the moment this guy jumps out of the trench, right? So I think that you really have to start looking at war games from a more common sense perspective. Say, if I was a person, would I do this? If I was that guy there, would I do that? Would I jump at the grenade, or would I jump at the machine gun nest? Probably not. So if that's would not work in real life, it's probably not going to work in a war game as well. I also think that war games really make abstract a lot of stuff, and that can also make things very hard, because in a RTS game you are looking at the specific soldier, the specific unit, and most times in war games you're looking at it's a whole division or it's a whole company, and most people don't really understand what a division is and what a company is, and how those things interact with each other too. So there's a lot of barriers to entry here. One is a knowledge barrier, historical barrier, this realism barrier, mechanical barrier.
But yeah. let's look at this issue of playing wars. Let's not call it issue, but the idea about playing this strategy simulators or war sims from the perspective of, like, let's call it casual strategy player as me. So I have loads of hours in Hearts of Iron 4. Maybe it's not thousands, but for sure, couple of hundreds. That's for sure. And there are logistics there are weapons there's some kind of simulated warfare, and then you go one step beyond that and you struck things like Panzer Corps, for example, series, Panzer General, which still I believe, because as far as the games you mentioned, I looked them up and all of them looks much harsher than the Panzer General series, for example. And still, Panzer General is such a huge leap in terms of what the things you need to comprehend in order to play this game effectively, that this is kind of maybe not an achievement, but it's this type of gaming that you need to push yourself into in order to get at some point this pleasure of playing games. Yes. So, for example, I want to make a little spin on this topic, because Jack is a huge advocate for Stellaris. Basically, he is Stellaris at this point. He should be space colonies at some point, or we'll see. And there's a game called Aurora. Have you heard about it?
The name rings a bell, but I don't think Aurora 4X. Right?
Yes, Aurora 4X. And this is basically a strategy simulation of a 4X game. And I'm thinking because I read about it, I watched the YouTube videos about it, and I just wonder, like, for example, if Jack would like to go, one step further, like, okay, I'm excellent at Stellaris, let's go to the simulation part of it, and then opens Aurora. And if you look at the interface of the game, basically it looks like Excel mixed with Windows 98 graphics. It's really bad. And I, for example, watched on YouTube that if you, for example, put a wrong mixture of fuel in your fuel tank, your rocket will blow up. And like, who knows why? Who knows what will happen? Like, this type of simulation. So I'm thinking, for example, for Jack, how to to get this step further, or for me on Hearts of Iron, how to push yourself in order to play this type of games, because you need to put some effort. It's not so easy as simply start playing it. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that a large part of it comes down to your experience because I understand what you're saying, right? Like the problem is how do you get into it? I'm not somebody who does a lot of simulation gaming, right? I think you brought up Stellaris, and I don't want to spend too long on it, but one of the things that I think is interesting, two things really. One, I don't really consider Stellaris too much of a simulator because yes, it has things that it does do like a simulation. It's probably considered a simulation on Steam. The reason I wouldn't consider it a simulation, and to jump over to my the other thing I was going to say right before I talk about that first point is when you hear people talk online about what they want from Stellaris 2 in the future from Paradox, right? They say what is going to be in Stellaris 2. They've already put everything in the first game. They usually suggest things like a physicalized or like basically if they could have little models of civilian ships flying around the solar systems, right? Because in Stellaris, they simulate the economy and the numbers that change in the game off of algorithms. They don't physically have civilian transport ships that get destroyed and then that actually affects your economy, right? Like Victoria. Victoria is a simulation of the economy from that era for each country. But when you simulate the economy, they're running algorithms. They're not really considering what happens if a warehouse burns down unless the game has like an event that says that happens, right? There isn't a warehouse somewhere that can burn down.
It's a level of abstraction.
Yeah. It's yes, exactly. It's a level of abstraction that lets them simulate things easier with less logic. It doesn't cause as much performance. So anyways, to go back to the original thing cuz I said I wouldn't spend too long on it. I wouldn't consider Stellaris too much of a simulation game because it doesn't simulate all the little things, right? Like it has buildings that you build and the buildings can get destroyed and that can affect the economy, but it's like it's supposed to happen. They have events that purposefully do that, or maybe you don't manage something okay. But in other games, like in City Skylines, right? Every building that's supposed to be there in your city is in your city. So if a fire breaks out by complete random and those cities burn down and those people are displaced, all of those variables you can't control does affect your economy. So that is a simulation. Um, I think the important thing though is to go back to like everything that Nuno's been talking about. If you and I wanted to get into something 4X space simulation and you wanted to get into like serious hardcore military sim beyond Hearts of Iron, right? You kind of have to one be in the mindset because there's no way you're going to just open up a whole bunch of graphs and spreadsheets or something like that and then dive right into it. I think you kind of have to have like a gateway drug game. Maybe that's Ultimate General Gettysburg for you, you know? Maybe it's you need the game to show you more units than Hearts of Iron ever does at a time. And then you're playing it like Hearts of Iron, but in Hearts of Iron, right, you get to do things and a bunch of consequences don't happen. But in this new game that you're playing, you're like, "Oh, wait, like I'm actually watching my little soldiers get run over by a tank because I wasn't paying attention to where I directed all those units to be." And it's like, okay, well now that everything is actually simulated, and then you're kind of like, well, this is actually really fun. Let me keep diving deeper. So maybe that's just something that you and I need to do. Maybe we need to find our gateway drug simulation game and get into it because he's off the deep end.
No, I agree. I agree with Jack on this, which is I think the more abstract war game becomes, it's really hard to get into it because you are already at a tactical. I mean, you're at the strategic level where the games. So let me rephrase this. The more complex, I would say that the more abstract the game is, the harder it is to get into it because you don't see the things happening. Like Shaq is saying, like you see the results of what went on the last turn, which is why I was mentioning that I think that Ultimate General, Gettysburg, or Civil War, which is also an amazing follow-up game to Gettysburg, they're very good because they happen at a tactical level, meaning that you see each individual soldier, you see what they're doing, you can physically understand what's going on because you just have to look at it. Okay, so you look at what's going on, you don't have to read the menu, you don't have to open another tab, you don't have to interact with obscure systems. Everything is happening in front of your eyes. So if you have two rows of soldiers fighting at one row of your soldiers, like they're doing double the damage that you are doing to them, so their morale, your morale is going to drop, and you can understand that immediately without having to go and look at a massive spreadsheet of something like, again, War in the East, which is, it happens at a division level where I mean, a division is like, I don't know, what, like 20,000 people maybe. I don't know. It depends on the war period. But I think that the less abstract the game is, the better it is. So you can have. I think Ultimate General is amazing because it's very close to Total War, meaning that most people can pick it up and play it without a lot of hassle. It's also very cheap as well. I have a couple of recommendations here too. Another cool entry game I think would be maybe combat mission titles as well, because they're tactical level too, and you have you can see, so each individual soldier is digitally rendered. Each tank represents one tank. Each artillery piece is one artillery piece, and you see every small soldier going on doing their stuff, and you can understand. So why is my soldier cowering here? Because he's probably getting shot at and he doesn't want to die, and you can see the bullets flying his way, and you can start to understand how things are put together. So the less abstraction you have, the better it is. And I would always advise people to play games from the less abstract order to a more abstract level. So start with a tactical game. The moment you're feeling comfortable, you're enjoying that. If you're having fun, and if you're really curious to know, oh, okay, so I would be really cool as a lieutenant or a captain. So what would it be like if I was a general now? So let me go up a couple of levels and see. Try to manage a couple of battalions or a couple of divisions here, and see if I enjoy that. Because war games are not all the same, right? You have tactical, operational, and strategic level war games. So the higher you go, the more abstract things get. So I would say if you want to dive into wargaming or milsims, maybe milsims not the right word because milsims are now more associated with first-person shooters. But if you want to like a strategic simulation, things like that, I would start from the kind of level that you're used to. So something like Total War, Company of Heroes. Find similar games like Combat Mission, Armored Brigade.
I have one game I forgot about, but it's really, I think it's a good introduction, and I enjoyed it. And it's called Men of War, and the new parts are called Call to Arms. These are the series that are like more than RTS, because there, for example, you need to cope with ammunition of each unit, you need to transport it, you have several like. You need to manage the orientation because of an armor, and for example, if you have a tank with specific type of ammunition, you cannot destroy another tank. It's more of, Company of Heroes is more of RTS, and there's not simulating much. Basically, you take damage, and maybe you have like rear armor, which is simply less more susceptible to damage. But when it comes to more simulation approach, I would say Call to Arms, Men of War, and I like these games. These are pretty good.
Yeah, they're a great stepping stone as well. Like I would say that Men of War, sorry, and Call to Arms is one of my favorite RTSs of all time. I call them RTSs, but yeah, I do agree with you. Like if you are used to playing something like Company of Heroes, which is the World War II RTS. And if you want to go into a more realistic war game, yeah, Call to Arms is the perfect stepping stone, because you start to see, like you said, like you have to manage ammunition. Do you have the right kind of ammo for that tank specifically? Like you no longer have HP for vehicles like Company of Heroes does. You will have like modular damage. So if you fire at that specific weak point in the tank, it's going to penetrate the armor and it's going to damage their engine, and the tank is not going to move. You can bust the tracks of a tank, you can destroy its main gun, you can even just kill the crew. You don't even have to destroy the tank. Sometimes you can kill the crew inside, and then you can repair the tank and use it.
I like when games understands its advantages, and for example, campaign in these games really uses all the tactics. So for example, in one mission, you are given one tank and 4 units, and you need to somehow cope with it. So you need to search for other tanks, maybe do a little espionage. Another type of I remember there was a mission on the Russian front that basically you needed to cope with this situation in Russia that they didn't have ammunition. So if someone died, the next guy took over his gun. And it's just perfectly simulated, because if you have full simulation of everything, you can just prepare that the front unit has ammunition and the back don't. So you need to somehow cope with this situation. Again, for example, they simulated this also a situation in Italy. I believe it was Italy, that the small battalion took over the whole hill. That was basically the approach to the finishing Second World War. Monte Cassino,
Yeah, probably Monte Cassino, yes.
Monte Cassino, probably. And also, you took advantage of the approach you need, because it was there was a hill, so you couldn't just, like in normal game, drive and kill everyone. You need to somehow manage to took over some corners and maybe drive through some buildings. Also, I don't know if in the newest installment, but I remember that you could took over the units, so you could just place as a single guy and aim directly at the unit you want to aim, and it was crazy.
It's almost a third-person shooter.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that. I remember it was like you could basically control it from strategic perspective, but yeah.
Oh yeah. In Call to Arms, you can play like you were playing like Gears of War. You can control and see from a third-person perspective, and if you're in a tank, you can see from like if you were playing World of Tanks, something like that, from a first-person view. Yeah, it's really cool. I think that's a great example of a game that's another perfect stepping stone. Say if you're into World War II, you have been playing Company of Heroes for years, you think that specific war game, say Combat Mission, Battle for Normandy, is really cool. You really think it's something you might enjoy. Yeah, maybe play Call to Arms first, see if that level of complexity is cool for you. If it is, then I don't think you're gonna have a lot of difficulty going to something like Combat Mission, which is a lot more realistic than any other game. But again, I think things come down to if you use common sense while playing. I know I'm gonna be talking about this a lot. That if you use common sense, things become a lot more obvious. That because we have gotten so used to game mechanics, to some level of abstraction in RTS titles and in turn-based strategy games. But if you use that level of common sense to say, oh, if I was this soldier, would I be doing this? Would I be running at the machine gun nest? Would I be trying to fight these 5 guys alone, like if I was playing Company of Heroes or something like that? Or would I be trying to rush this tank? Would I really be going out in the open and try to rush a tank with my hand grenades that really do no damage to the tank at all? Because again, like these are not supposed to be games. They are not supposed to be balanced as well. And I think you need to embrace that. It's like, you don't have to win to have fun. Sometimes you just have to do a desperate last stand and try to delay defeat as long as possible. I think that we've grown so used to trying to win in strategy games that's not the point of a war game. The point of a war game and a realistic simulation is to accurately simulate what might have happened. And sometimes what might have happened that you just might lose. I think this is also a change of mentality that needs to happen. That this is not a competitive game. You are not in a competitive space. You don't have to win. You're playing with history. I think this is to me that also changed a lot of things. It's just maybe, yes, I know I'm outnumbered, I'm outgunned, and I'm not gonna win this. But okay, if I was in this situation, what would I try to do? It all comes to me. It all comes down to that. It's just you're playing with history. You're having fun with what you can, and at the end of the day, you're not gonna be. This is not ranked in League of Legends, right? You're not going to the World Finals and play So you're just trying to have fun with that. There's nothing at stake. It's just you enjoying your time with the game. Yeah, and you're probably going to lose a couple times before you get the hang of things. The other tip I would have for people is that if you're really into a kind of historical setting, just read about that setting while you're playing, and I think it makes makes things a lot more enjoyable, because you start to associate, like, oh, I read about this static, let me try it out and see if it works in the game as well. And then the moment you see that it works, you start to gain a new level of appreciation for the game, because, like, oh man, the developers thought about this. Yeah, the guys actually did some research, and that might be a bit difficult to get there. And I am of the opinion that wargaming developers really do a bad job of communicating the game mechanics, and they're really not the best at selling their games as well. I think they always undersell it. They're just like, oh yeah, this is it's a war game, but not they don't go to a great length to show the strength of the game and what it can be done. Sometimes looks like they're almost ashamed of what they're doing. So yeah, I think it's a question of just go have fun. Okay, just like play with the mechanics. If you lose, you lose. Like, play as if you were a kid. Like, if you were a kid, did you really care if you lost or won that mission? No, if you lost, you do it again, and you do it again, and you do it again until you win it.
Man, when I was a kid, when I played Panzer General, it came up wrong. And I was quickly discouraged by this game. But anyway, I couldn't understand the thing. My English wasn't also good, so maybe that was the reason.
Yeah, I think if you go back to it, just play, like, go to the simpler missions at the by Panzer Generals is in World War II at the start of the war, and just you can play with the Poles. I don't know if you can play with the Poles, to be honest. I don't remember the last time I played Panzer General, but if you can just, oh, look, I know I'm going to lose this because we are vastly outnumbered, but how can I, if I was in charge of this, what would I do to not lose this? And play around with tactics and strategies and moving. Oh, if this tank shouldn't be here, maybe it should be on another road. If it was on this junction instead of that, would that change a thing? I think if you enjoy that kind of gameplay experimentation, you're gonna enjoy a lot of war games. So I really love whenever a war game features Portugal, because I know a lot about Portuguese history. So even in battles that I'm like, hey man, Portugal we got our asses handed to us in this time, so we lost this battle. But what would I change that? Or even in battles that Portugal won, like medieval battles, can I replicate that? Would I be as good a general as that other guy was?
Man, this is the greatest mistake of when you're a Polish guy and you try to play Poland and you know history. Our history is, let's call it, turbulent. So when you know Polish history, it occurs. We basically lost most of our wars. And due to this fact, for example, when you play Hearts of Iron first time in your life and you're like, okay, I'm from Poland, let's play Poland. And Poland, basically, Hearts of Iron 4 is one of harder nation to start with, to be honest. Like, I wouldn't advise to play it for sure. It's like, it's really complicated. You really need to understand all the mechanics. But one thing that you brought to my mind is that we are talking about war sims, how they can be overwhelming and stuff like that. Jack, who is Stellaris player and Victoria 3 player, for example, too, it's really interesting because for us, it's overwhelming to play games like Combat Mission, like Panzer General. And for example, if I would show Stellaris to my dad, who is, basic RTS player, he plays Strongholds. For him, it would look like a spreadsheet. He would tell me, Adam, you're playing a spreadsheet at this moment. And for you, Stellaris is like game, abstract game about abstract stuff. That's not really a simulation. This is really interesting. Because, yeah, from our point of view, it's really hard to get to the next step. But on the other hand, the games we are playing, for most of players, are considered really, maybe not hardcore, but tough challenge for sure in terms of gameplay mechanics and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that comes down to what games you're used to playing, because I recently wrote an article called like the best games to play if you want to play XCOM, and most of us might be like, oh, like the 2012 XCOM, like that was a very simple turn-based strategy game, like that really has nothing special to it. But that article came about because I was talking with a friend of mine who was like, ah man, I really want to play XCOM, but I don't know how to start because that looks so complex. So remember, this is a guy that used to play Civilization 4 a lot with me. So um, he's not a new guy to strategy games, but for him, and he, oh, by the way, he plays a lot of Football Manager. Like if you know Football Manager, you know that that game is a fucking spreadsheet simulator.
Football Manager is this special game that you can make it spreadsheet simulator, because when you start and you put like the basic options, basically you see a match, you see players running around. It's a nice game. And for example, Joe, who is a huge advocate for Football Manager, I believe he is not watching games anymore at this point, because for example, my friend who is playing lots of Football Manager, he only reads the script, because when you play the match, you get these messages, and he only hits them. He doesn't look at the match anymore.
Yeah, but it just comes down to what are you familiar with, right? So if you have been grown up, if you grew up playing Football Manager, and I mean, I think Football Manager is a complex game. Don't get me wrong; it's just the kind of game that you really, first of all, you need to understand soccer. So if you don't understand soccer, how do you know what are the positions of each player? How do you know which players to should you hire?
Joe often says that he basically didn't watch soccer before playing Football Manager. So firstly, he started playing Football Manager, then he started to watch soccer. So maybe
Yeah, so
for some people it will work out somehow.
yeah, it's interesting that, because I think you need to have a sort of previous knowledge for at least to make the most out of it. But I don't think Football Manager is a simple game at all. I think it's actually very complex. Again, this friend of mine very used to playing Football Manager because he's a massive football fan. But for him, the idea of jumping into XCOM was very complicated. So he actually needed a stepping stone game to before going into XCOM as well. And I think that there are a lot of it just comes down to are you used to it or not. And I don't think there's a sort of progression you might have. It comes down a lot on your personal taste and what kind of games do you enjoy. Like if you say like, oh, I'm a guy that enjoys sci-fi a lot more than I do history, like Hal, for example. Hal is a massive fan of sci-fi, and he really is not a massive fan of historical events. So I mean, you might be having a hard time playing war games if you don't enjoy history, because
On the other hand, I cannot imagine Al playing Aurora. Or maybe he will. He will.
he's an RTS guy. So I think he would not be having a lot of fun playing war games as a whole. But yeah, I think it just comes down to what are you looking for. And I do advise people that if you tell me like what's your favorite um moment in history, and most people are like, oh man, I really like World War II, like it's the or medieval, like I mean, me too as well. I do love World War II and medieval history too. So not a knock on those people. Um, so if you were like, let's take the example of medieval to change things around. So you start playing medieval games, you're gonna start with what, Age of Empires, probably. Like, oh yeah, I played Age of Empires in the late '90s, and that was the game that actually started me. I bought a couple of books after and all that. But I really want to play a more realistic game. What can I do? I would say that yeah, you can start with something like Age of Empires, go Total War after, maybe play a couple of Manor Lords here and there as well. But if you want to play something like again, Wargame Design Studios like Sword and Siege, I think you can also go to Stronghold, which is actually Stronghold is somewhat of a realistic game, to be honest, because those castles are very accurate, and I once ran a simulation on Stronghold just for the fun of it, and it actually panned out like it did in real life. So I'm very surprised on that, on a real medieval battle. So yeah, that was very fun. And then I would say like you have Field of Glory as well, which is another cool game, very semi realistic too. I would say Crusaders Kings would probably be the next stepping stone as well. Like Crusaders Kings is a really complex game, especially if you don't understand how medieval history works. That game is not gonna make 1 week of sense to you because you're so used to controlling nations that the idea of taking controls of people and families might be obvious to an history nerd because like there was not really the concept of a nation in medieval times. It was just kings, dukes, um, and royal families and loyalty, and the concept of a nation was something that was very fluid back then. And then I would say
Exactly, that's what Paradox is aiming for. Yes, they're taking the game that happens in some period. Yeah, for example, Victoria 3 happens in the period when huge trade between different countries, and basically the trade world was becoming to exist. Yes, so they simulated trade as the main core of the game. When we have Hearts of Iron 4, basically they simulated the war, pure war. Yes, Crusader Kings happened in times that the most important thing was having a well-placed family and do a little bit of assassination in order to put your family in the first place in some places, or maybe take over some stuff. So they simulated this part, and so on and so forth. And Stellaris probably is the one of the greatest summation of exploration and expansion. What people think will happen in the space age, if it will happen at some point, is that we'll explore and expand, and the game is basically all about it. I that's what I think.
Look, when it comes to me, right, I've been deliberating on the game is called 4X, right? 4X is the name of the space
Aurora.
like simulation game.
Aurora, you mean?
I think it's on my
X
Steam.
X4.
No, I was
X4.
well, okay.
It's because they
I know,
changed
yes,
the other,
Aurora. X4. That's it. Yes. No. Yes. X4. Yes. X4 has been on my Steam wishlist for like forever, and it just got updated to like main update 9.0, and it's technically, I mean, it is a strategy simulation game, right? So like I'm wanting to make the plunge, Adam. You're right. Like I'm standing on the edge of the deep end of that pool, wanting to jump in because they know me. They know how much I just want to play a game where you can fly a spaceship and then get up out of the pilot seat and then walk around the ship. But there's as affordable as that game is, I don't know. I feel like my strategy games have to pull me in. Like I can't just do a simulation, right? Like I can't feel like I'm just spending time on a simulation. I think that that's something, if I touched back on what I think Nuno likes about war games, I think what he likes about war games isn't just that he makes his own story. I think that because they present stories or they're retellings of actual historical events, you are getting something out of it. Like I'm sure if I had a conversation with Nuno, he could have a whole conversation with me about historical warfare that he knows about because he played those games. If I played X4, I don't know. I like to use the term Renaissance man. I wouldn't call myself a Renaissance man, but it's the idea that like, when I'm spending my time, I'm investing it wisely. And so if I'm playing Victoria, I could actually talk to somebody about history a little bit after Victoria, or like even Civilization. There's some stuff that you get from that. X4, like I'm not hating on anybody who plays that game. It's just me making the dive. It's kind of like spending all day in a Microsoft spreadsheet, and then when you finally get off the computer, people are like, how'd you spend your day? And you're like, you can't say anything because what did you do? Like, what did you actually, like, what are you going to take away from that to like talk about or bring into the rest of your life? So I'm not saying that's not possible, but I'm right there on the edge, Adam. I want to jump in and play X4. I don't have the time for something like that.
So this is an interesting game because it starts really nice and slow, and like you have your ship, you can fly anywhere, and it's like you can buy stuff at this place, sell stuff at the other place. I finished after 10 hours, but as far as I read online, after 150 hours you wake up all sweaty in your huge colony of ships taking over another empire or trade federation in intergalactic war or something like that. So that's the thing about it. I played 10 hours of it, and I decided, as you said, I don't have time for that anymore. I would like a little bit more action. That would happen to me. But at my one of my colleagues and my work, he really admired the game. He really likes it, and beforehand he hasn't played any other simulation games, and it was the first one. And he told me this is one of the best games he played in a long time, because this is type of the game. He has a Steam Deck and it has a controller setup, so he can just sit when, for example, he's watching some shows with his wife. He can also play on the Steam Deck and fly the ship for 10 minutes to one place, sell stuff, then control part of the fleet and stuff like that. So if you have space for this type of game, I believe that Football Manager is this type of game for Joe. So if you have space for this type of game, I believe it's for you. But if for me at least, it's not the game that I'm really down to sitting for 3 hours and thinking about my next move. Yes, this is not this type of game.
I never heard about X4. I think I'm looking at it right now. Looks interesting. Not my kind of game. Not that much of a sci-fi guy, but looks cool. A lot of very complex stuff going on. Like, this is like Star Citizen but good, right?
Yeah, it's one of the reviews I saw on the Steam page as I was looking at it just before the episode was it was called Star Citizen from Germany. And keep in mind this game is on update 9. It has multiple paid DLCs and it's been out for years and it's pretty highly beloved. So I don't know, take that, Star Citizen, I guess, but I think that there's obviously an incentive to play something like X4 because, like I was talking about before, it physically simulates all of these different ships within the galaxy doing things, mining ore, selling them, transporting them. So playing to the game, if you decide to do piracy and you destroy a ship that's carrying goods, that's transporting them, you can actually affect the economy of that stuff and then turn right around and then capitalize on that yourself.
But is this a strategy game or more of a simulation game?
I think it's a
space sim.
That's a good question. What would you say, Adam?
It starts as action game. I would even say that for like 3 hours it's action. Then it's strategy game for like 30 hours, I believe. I finish after 10, so I cannot tell about the other part. But as far as I read and watched the gameplays of the game, after 30 hours is a simulation game, because the whole world is simulation, and you start with only one ship, and in order to experience whole simulation you need to expand to touch the mechanics that are not available to you at the beginning. Yes, so this is this type of game.
Okay, interesting. So do you guys like things like flight sims or racing sims as well?
Ooh, okay. If we're just talking about simulation games in general and we leave strategy games, it gets into a mess for me, man. Like, I not exactly a racing sim, and I would get a lot of hate for this, but earlier this year, Forza Horizon 7 came out, or no, what am I saying? Forza Horizon 6. And anyways, yeah, when that game came out, I literally lost a week of my life. Funnily enough, I lost a week of my life, and I still just called it Forza Horizon 7, but I'm like, it's honestly so forgetful that Forza Horizon 5 came out, unfortunately, but when 6 came out earlier this year, I lost a week of my life. It's just the cars, the mechanics of the vehicles.
It's a great game.
It was bad. It was probably like the most time I put into a game in years, in like one sitting. So yeah, for me, it's all of that stuff. It's like construction games. It is like, sometimes I'll come home and just do what I do during the day, and I'll just like start being an electrician in a game. So, it's one of those things. But how about you guys?
I'm thinking about the most sim game in my life, and I would say say it's Dwarf Fortress. This is really interesting simulation. Have you heard about it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what?
This is the simulation of the Dwarf Kingdom. Basically, you kind of control the kingdom, but to the so minute details, like what your dwarf wears on the left feet, where he has scar and he was bitten by a spider that had a name, and so on and so forth. So this is this type of the management. To be honest, I stopped playing it pretty fast. I'm thinking about the game that really grasped my attention for long, and to be honest, seems they usually don't, because I'm fed up at some point with lots of mechanics. And regarding racing games, I'm more of a Gran Turismo guy. I love the jazz vibe of this, like premium feel, like, because when you play Gran Turismo and you hear this Japanese jazz playing in the background, and you move through the cars and you hear this voice telling you about the history of this car that happened in this year. Yeah, and it's really, eases the pressure like out of me. Like, I'm like, okay, I can chill out and just watch and drive some race and may lose it. Probably I will lose it because I'm really bad at this type of games. But that's the thing that's really fun for me. And Nuno, I know you are playing War Sims, but what's your last addiction?
No, I'm not. I'm not a. I'm like Jack in this. I'm not that much into simulation games, like traditional sims, like flight sims and all that. So,
But War Sims.
yeah, war sims. I'm all into that. But if I had to choose between
So what's your last War Sim, maybe?
the last war sim that I have played,
But like really long time, like Jack played Forza Horizon.
probably Burden of Command would be the like Burden of Command 3 Nations DLC would be the latest one, I think. Let me just check to see if I have played something that might be escaping me, because recently I haven't been playing a lot of war games. I just did like a sort of kind of reset at the moment, trying to play other genres as well. But yeah, it was 3 Nations from Burden of Command, the DLC. Pretty sure I played all the missions there back to back in a week or something like that. Even played the second, no, the American mission like 3 or 4 times to see, let's see how this plays out differently. So I'm the kind of guy that enjoys replaying things and see if I can change how they go about the day. But yeah, but about the other topic, like traditional sims, I'm as a kid or as a teen, I was really into flight sims for some reason. Maybe because my dad was also into them, so he was always like buying me games like that, and I really loved flight sims, World War II flight sims, as everyone else does. But if I had to choose between playing something like Dirt Rally or Forza, I would be playing Forza all day. Just because, man, you just can pick up like you can just pick up a controller and just relax and see car go fast. Car goes against wall, nothing happens. While if you're playing a more hardcore game, better not speed up in this curve, otherwise you're gonna end up in the other side of the road, or you might crash and you have to start again. So yeah, it's a lot more relaxing to me to play arcade racing games than Sims. As for Sims, my favorite, I know people are probably gonna get pissed at this, but if I had to choose like the sim or the more approachable sim, I would go with War Thunder, because War Thunder is like the perfect balance between what are realistic tactics, realistic mechanics, and accessibility, like both in the flight aspect of it and the tank aspect of it. Like they're just perfect. I love War Thunder. So I don't care what people say about that. If I had to choose between an hardcore tank game or War Thunder, I would go War Thunder all day. War Thunder is amazing.
So we are not getting sponsored by World of Tanks, guys.
No, but we can get sponsored by War Thunder.
Exactly, Gaijin Entertainment. Come on. Yeah, a lot of my close friends, really close friends that I speak to very regularly, they adore War Thunder. They're very deep into that game, years and years into that game. And I've put some time into it. It is very, forgiving isn't the word. I think it's very generous to like the time that you commit, even for a free-to-play model. And it doesn't feel overly simulated, but it's just one of those things where you can kind of progress somewhat reasonably. And like, I mean, it is fun. It is fun to play that game as a tank. I am curious, is it a Eastern European thing that you listen to jazz music and want your car to whisper to you? That sounds very Eastern European to me, like EDM in the car, and like for some reason you have like an AI voice talking to you through your central console. That sounds like my experience in Germany.
Man, as I told you, I'm hunting deers today for food tomorrow, so probably not. No, but anyway, no, that's not the thing. If I would think, nah, that's some stereotype. That's not the thing.
Okay.
Sorry, Jack. Basically, I know that I disappointed you, but usually people these days listen to rap when they're driving car, like because in Poland rap became really popular, as in US and probably Portugal too.
Talking about like partying in Alicante, right?
Yeah, we talked about the song that was popular in Poland, so
Yeah, I know. I try to talk to every European about EDM, electronic dance music, or something, and they're like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." I'm like, what is going on here? These stereotypes are wrong." Now, I know we're getting towards the end a little bit, but Nuno, I did have a question for you. Have you? I don't know that you're a multiplayer guy. I'm pretty sure you aren't very much a multiplayer guy, but you did just mention War Thunder. So, what is your opinion on games like something like Arma, if you've ever experienced that or know about it, right? Because it is multiplayer, but there's a lot of like strategy aspects.
I was avoiding the milsim aspect of this, but yeah, we can because I'm always gonna be really mad that we're gonna go over the 1 hour mark on this. But I'm not a multiplayer guy at all when it comes to strategy games, especially war games. Really, that's not what I'm looking after. I just want to play on my own terms and try out different stuff. And one of the things I hate that most strategy communities have is that they try to game the mechanics, try to optimize the mechanic, exploit some coding problem here and there to or bug or something like that's completely unbalanced to break the game and win. And like I told Adam earlier, I don't play the game to win. I just play to because I want to try stuff out and have fun with that. As for mil sims, I love mil sims. I don't play Arma though, but Squad and Hell Let Loose are probably my most played first-person shooters online of all times. I think Hell Let Loose is probably my most played first-person shooter ever. Again, why is that? I think that because Hell Let Loose is an amazing game when it comes to employing real-life tactics, so that tends to work really well. And Squad because it's really fun to play with a squad that when everything clicks, it just feels perfect. I do enjoy a lot of first-person shooters. I play a lot of FPS games, and I enjoy like things like Battlefield and Call of Duty as well. Have a lot of fun with those. Love the latest Battlefield game. Really cool. Played it for like 200 hours when it came out, so I have no problems with that. But I think some of my most fondest memories playing multiplayer games have to be from Squad because I really have fun being a squad leader and just trying to. And the moment you start to use real tactics, people really get invested into it. So you say, "Oh no, you're gonna park the IFB here, and you're gonna give covering fire while that squad gets split into two. You move to the left, you move to the right." And people really start to act like sometimes people will become a bit too autistic and start using even military jargon, which is I think is just a step too far. But yeah, I do enjoy those games a lot, mainly because it's just fun playing with other people, especially if you're using real tactics against real people. It tends to be very satisfying to see your plan comes together.
Before we finish, I have a fun fact for you. I have a friend who is playing Arma. Right now, what he's doing for a living is that he is also a 3D graphic guy. And he due to the fact that he played Arma a lot, he get to know people from all around the world, and they pay him to create special models for special arms, for special vehicles, for I don't know, suits for and armors for soldiers and stuff like that that are not available in the game. And for example, they I don't know, they wish to be represented. So for example, he created a special type of gun that was only produced 1 year, and he got the photos from this guy from United States, and he does it for a living, and he earns lots of money for it. And he told me that most of his clients are old veterans that, for example, had their favorite weapon and pay him, I don't know, a couple of thousands of dollars for him to make it to the Arma. So that's interesting.
I see. So you're advertising for him here. And I know a big thing about Arma, right? A big thing about Arma is it's a game that you're supposed to mod heavily, right? Whenever you join a server in Arma, you're not really playing base game Arma whenever you join a server. Actually, for anybody who's listening and was uninitiated, because this is, normally a strategy games podcast, Something I think is interesting about milsims that we've never really covered on the channel before is that milsims are kind of this concept we've touched upon every once in a while in videos and episodes of ours, which is games that aren't exactly strategy games but borrow a lot of strategy game mechanics, and that's kind of what milsims are by nature. They're just usually first person shooters, the way you would imagine something like Call of Duty, except these games they take the realism and the strategic advantage of actual combat and warfare seriously. So they let you drive all of the vehicles that you can see. They simulate the physics of those vehicles, what it's like to actually drive them, and they try to have as either historically accurate based on the time period it's set, or like just real world accuracy to the different arms and weapons and equipment that you can use. And another big thing about mil sims is things like actually using a shovel to dig trenches, or using a shovel to build sandbag cover. Or a big thing about mil sims is what they actually are a simulation, because you're not necessarily making a phone call to an NPC or a fake person to do the bombing run. You're actually radioing in for a player who drives a helicopter or a plane to do a bombing run or pick you up, or you're actually calling a tank somewhere else and giving them coordinates based on a compass to like give you covering fire, or fire artillery on the enemy that you've scouted with your binoculars. So that's what milsims are. Interestingly about Arma though, and I think to what Adam is saying to back up his story, so much of it is you join a server and like the servers require you to just download dozens of mods from Steam Workshop so that they could have enhanced the game with the certain weapons they want, or maybe change the game that isn't set at a certain period of time to a different period of time, stuff like that. So maybe that's what he's doing. Maybe he's making modded weapons and stuff, but maybe he's just also representing people outside the game. But that's interesting, getting to know people in game, because so much of it relies on voice chat. I mean, obviously, a big part of our audience is single player, so I know that milsims aren't necessarily interesting from that perspective, but they're an interesting concept to think about as like what games borrow strategy mechanics, and we've never done an episode on them, mostly because Al, I don't think, has ever played a game with another person in his life. But, you know, when you play a milsim, it's like inherently it has to be multiplayer for the magic that I'm talking about, but it's so successful in borrowing what are genuine strategy game mechanics, and they're not just strategy game mechanics because they like part of it is because they're other people, so it's simulating the real world. But another thing is they're giving you things like I mean, there's just all kinds of multiplayer simulation games that require baseline strategy mechanics or tactical mechanics from strategy games. It's interesting.
I do think that milsims are a genre or subgenre of wargaming as a whole, because like some of them even do a better job than a couple of war games that I can remember of simulating warfare. I mean, how many times have I had situations in squad where I was actually employing real life tactics that I had learned in the game, and things worked out perfectly, and it is really satisfying to pull that off. And that you know that for you, in order to pull that off, someone in the design team had to think about the underlying mechanics that would work if you try that. So that's always really, really fun to see, and super satisfying to see your plan come together into something that, oh, I learned this in a book. Or if you're like a lot of military veterans, I mean, I have played games like this with, I would say that, I don't know, like 50% of the guys are veterans. So it's like you said, Jack, you get out of work and then you're gonna play Electrician Simulator. So I guess these guys get out of the military and they want to go and relive their glory days in here as well. Yeah, maybe we need to set up an episode about milsims and talk about those.
Yeah, I'm interested now because I think it's like a larger discussion where, like I said, we've talked so many times, we try to bring up the topic of like what games aren't necessarily strategy games that our audience might not know about, but what is an interesting talking point about games that borrow strategy mechanics and work. Okay, so maybe we've talked about that stuff, but a whole episode on milsims where we're just describing like, I think we did an episode a while back. I think Joe was on, and I don't exactly remember what the topic was, but Joe brought up that games that don't have like solid, like they don't have planned storytelling, so they have, you know, what you call emergent storytelling, lead to so many additional stories, and something about like the randomness of the mechanics playing together, stuff like that. And so that's what milsims are. It's like a whole episode we could do, not just on telling stories of that stuff, but like there are other games that aren't just milsims that borrow strategy mechanics and are like built into the game from the aspect of multiplayer, which a lot of our audience doesn't resonate with, but it has to be an interesting concept to think about. Like, how many people are playing strategy games single player and then they come away with stories to tell people? I think the number is pretty high, but possibly less than like the helicopter pilot you can't control because they're a real person, that actually has a supply line that they're controlling in a multiplayer map because they're the ones defending like a cargo run of trucks in a milsim.
I think there's a quite a bit of an overlap when it comes to people who enjoy strategy and who enjoy this kind of games as well. I mean, most of the guys I played with, they also really interested strategy game players. So I don't know if it's because of history, like it's the fact that you enjoy an historical title, so you're gonna enjoy all the other titles related to that historical period as well. Maybe that's it, but I do think there's like these kinds of mil sims, strategy games, war games. They all overlap a bit. Right? Like people will always find some sort of enjoyment in most of these genres or subgenres too.
Yeah, so maybe we'll chase that topic in the future.
Yes, guys, stay tuned to listen to us. Maybe we can even try to invite Al to play, and we'll do a stream or something like that, where we are trying to coach Al in how Let Loose or Squad or Armored Assault on how to assault a compound of terrorists or something like that.
Or make him play Gettysburg.
Yes, well, I've been playing.
I don't think his
Yeah.
his old brain would be able to handle it.
Yeah. He would remember it from the newspaper. Well, all right.
All right, guys.
Yeah. Let's wrap up there. I think it was a pretty good discussion. I think that being able to cover things like, I mean, strategy simulation is already a niche. Al was already like, what the heck is a strategy simulation game? Well, now you know, Al. Thanks for editing this episode. And we appreciate everyone else for listening. This has been another episode of Critical Moves. If you enjoyed what you heard, then please go check out our YouTube where you can find the episodes and all of our previous episodes with video reference footage. We also have a website at criticalmovespodcast.com where we even have an old school forum. You can read all kinds of articles that we've done for games there. You can also read interviews that we've done with developers, and mostly you can listen to them from the podcast because that's where we do most of them. And also, if you are looking for other places because you found this podcast in one location and you're looking for other places to listen to it, then we have good news because this podcast can be listened to on every streaming platform that has podcasts. So if you liked what you heard, please go over to the YouTube, like, share the videos, subscribe so that you can keep getting podcast episodes sent to you in your notifications. And if you have a topic that you want us to cover, please come into our community Discord and let us know. You can find the Discord links on the YouTube videos, at the YouTube channel, on the website, and on all the streaming platforms where you would have listened. So thank you so much for listening, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a really good time.